Just a quick one before we dive in. I've just opened up 2 brand new ways to work with me. If you're an established beauty professional who's ready to increase your revenue, either in your clinic or by moving into the online mentoring and educational space, you can join me for a 2-month container where we build and validate your first online offer or your next big move. Or if you're ready to go all in, there is a 7-month private mentorship where we build, launch and scale your new revenue stream together. If you're not sure which one's right for you, I'm offering a handful of free business clarity calls, quick and powerful to map out your fastest path and to see which container fits best. Just DM me the word revenue on Instagram or check the link in the show notes and email me. Let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the Beauty Build podcast with me, Zara King. As a coach for beauty pros, it is my mission to help you earn more, work less, and create an unstoppable mindset. This is the show where we explore all of that. So whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting your beauty business, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and join us on the journey. And for more, get yourself inside my private community, The Beauty Build on Facebook. Hello, you gorgeous beauty pro you, and welcome back to another episode. Thank you so much for being here. I absolutely love the fact that you guys are letting me know what you think about the podcast week on week. So thank you for those of you that have been in my DMs. Please, if you like an episode of this podcast, take a screenshot and pop it on your stories and tag me, because then it helps other beauty pros see the podcast, listen to the podcast, and share the podcast. Today, I have got a lemsip with me, guys. I have got another cold. Don't ask me what's going on with the world. I feel like it's been this way since December, and I feel like the weather can't make its mind up, so maybe it's that. I'm blaming it on that. Anyway, April has been Stress Awareness Month, so I really wanted to do an episode on building resilience, balancing stress, and making sure that you're using it for your success in your beauty business instead of actually getting too stressed to manage everything that you've got to do. So it's all about reducing stress. And if you've seen it online, a lot of the people that are posting about Stress Awareness Month have been talking about how to reduce stress, what kind of methods there are to reduce stress. We're going to talk about some of those as well. But actually, I really want to touch on how you should be, and write this down if you're listening with a pad and a pen. You need to be maintaining a healthy level of stress. That is what I really want to talk about today, because we all actually need a little bit of stress, because I actually had a quick look at the meaning of stress, what stress is kind of thing. And what came up in front of me was stress is psychological and physiological response to perceived threats, right? Or challenges. And that's the interesting part, challenges. And what they do is it triggers a cascade of reactions aimed at preparing the body for action. We're supposed to be being prepared to go into action. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes stress can stop us in our tracks. But actually stress is supposed to be like a good thing in healthy amounts, right? We all think of stress and think of bad stress. We all think of the effects and the symptoms that you can see on our behaviours, on our mood, what it does to us physically when it gets too much, the emotional side of things, because you can probably feel that there's emotional and mental health things that come up with stress. And what that's doing is obviously changing the way that you think. It's actually interrupting the cognitive function of your brain when you are too stressed. So obviously there are so many symptoms that can come up. But what we really want to look at is the scale of the stress, right? That's what's really, really important. And that's what I wanted to touch on today, because among all of the stuff that I was seeing on social media and things about stress in this Stress Awareness Month, I didn't actually come across anyone talking about a healthy level of stress. And maybe the National Stress Awareness Month was based around, reducing chronic stress. And I totally get that. But I just thought, let's have a quick chat about the fact that we all do need a sort of healthy level of stress in our lives. And that's what's super important, because without any of the good stress, right, without any of that, we can become inactive. We can just sit down and do nothing. We can get bored. We can stop pushing ourselves. We can, not take any new challenges on. We don't want that. We're business owners. You're business owners, right? You do not want to be bored and inactive and stagnant. You don't want any of that. But then obviously with too much stress and too much demand, you're going to have the distraction, the overwhelm, the anxiety, the burnout and all of that. So obviously we don't want any of that. And we certainly do not want any chronic stress. So,
when you're literally at chronic stress levels, you're looking at a weaker immune system. You're looking at having higher risk of different diseases. You're looking at having digestive issues, sleep issues, you name it, issues, physical pains, things like that, and your mental health going to pot. So we certainly don't want any of that, because it's harmful to us. It's harmful to us, it's harmful to those around us, it's harmful in general. So we don't want any of that, and we certainly don't want to be aging at the rate that we would be if we were chronically stressed, because I mean, you know, I have got enough grey hairs as it is. I don't need to be aging anymore. And it actually makes me laugh. It reminds me of the film The Holiday. If anyone's seen it, I'm sure you have. It's actually one of my favourite movies, and it just cracks me up. It reminds me of when Cameron Diaz says something along the lines of, women are stressed. We're stressed. We're more stressed than men, apparently. So if you're a man watching this, listening to this, then, you know, sorry, this isn't aimed at you, but apparently women are more stressed than men. And apparently what it does is it ages us more, and it makes us look haggard. It shows up on our faces, what she says in the movie. And it's just making me think of that. So obviously we don't need any of that, right? That is not what we need. I certainly don't need to speed up the aging process. But as I say, what we do need is a healthy level of stress for our productivity, you know. And I know that in the beauty industry, you guys are working long hours. I know that because most of you are telling me that you're working long hours and you don't know how to change your hours because clients get used to certain hours. You might not be taking any breaks because you feel like you need to see all the clients under the sun, pack them all in and make as much money as you possibly can. And, you know, without a bum on the chair or somebody laying on the beauty bed, you're not actually getting any money in the door. I understand that. You also, if you're a self-employed beauty pro, which is the type of beauty pro that I help most often, then you're probably taking on multiple responsibilities in regards to running of the business. You're probably, you know, the person that does the treatments, you're probably the admin, you're probably the social media manager, you're probably the finance manager, you're probably everything. So there's a lot of pressure on you. There's also a lot of pressure being put on you from demanding clients. So, you know, we all fall into this people pleaser mode at some point, and I think in the beauty industry it can be even worse because we're in a people pleasing industry, I like to call it, because it's such a personal role. It's personal care. So I feel like we fall into that a lot more than maybe other industries fall into it. So again, there's that going on. There's also the financial stress of having to reach, you know, your income goals and targets. Then there's, you know, the whole fact that we don't earn enough in the beauty industry anyway, on average. So there's all of these things. And let's be honest, in this day and age, we just have, or like the stress level that we have and the demand level is absolutely huge. And, you know, everything is so fast paced. Everything is ridiculously like we wanted it yesterday. So, of course, our bodies, we're just human bodies, right? Our bodies are going to struggle eventually if we keep just taking on more and more things and, you know, keep going with these different job titles that we're giving ourselves, right? Because our bodies are human bodies, and I don't know when you guys last checked, but have they ever changed? Like, we don't change. The human body is the way it has been for thousands and thousands and however many years. But the thing that has changed is our environments. So it's inevitable, obviously, if we don't do anything to manage our stress levels because, you know, get too bombarded with what we've got going on, then our bodies aren't going to keep up because we've stayed the same. Technology has increased, expectations have increased, demand basically has increased, and the challenges and the demands and the supposed threats we see in the human body have increased. So therefore our stress levels have increased. With that all being said, and all of that kind of, you know, difficult stuff and all of the hard truths, we have to do something about it. So what do? We have to stop first of all. We have to have a think. We have to take a moment to actually address what's going on, stop for a minute, listen to our bodies and think and recognise what is going on physically with my body. How am I feeling? You know, how am I operating? How am I feeling? Am I physically fit? Am I physically able to do everything I want to do? Mentally, am I able to do things the way I want to do them? Emotionally, am I okay? So take a minute to stop and reflect and recognise all of the symptoms that could be cropping up to show you that actually we need to do something differently here because maybe the stress levels are a bit too high for us. And then what do? We have to use that information and do something with it. Right? So we have to either decide, on the action plan? Is it going to be that we take more breaks? Is it that we need to have an actual day off? Is it that we need to talk to people about what's going on in our lives and we need a little bit of therapy? Is it that we need more support? Is it that we need to be a bit more productive? Is it that we need to manage ourselves a little bit better? Is it that we need to set some boundaries? We need to prioritize ourselves. We need to prioritize the self-care, right? So it's stop, listen, and then do something about it if there's something to be done about it. Unless you're feeling absolutely dandy in all aspects, i.e. the physical aspects and the mental and emotional aspects, then there's probably something you need to do about it. And then what you've got to do, once you've done that and you've thought about doing what you're gonna do, you actually then need to stay mindful. And this can sometimes be the most difficult part. So you need to stay mindful. You need to build up a resilience to this stress piling up on you. So you need to be able to combat it before it gets bad. And you need to use that stress only to improve what you're doing and to improve your focus and your presence and, your ability to be productive and to get the results that you want to get in life and business. So I've got a couple of tips. I've got a couple of things. There's 4 things that I think you should do in order to stay mindful and to build a resilience towards how you look after yourself and how you let stress impact yourself. So the first thing is to start your day and end your day with a check-in. So it could be that, you might have been doing these type of things monthly, or you look at your goals and you look back at how things have gone and how you're feeling, or maybe things creep up on you, or maybe you're great at this and you do it daily or weekly. But I think a daily habit to start and end your day with a check-in can be really useful in seeing what state your energy is in. So it can be really good to actually practice gratitude. It can be really good to actually do this via journaling and practice mindfulness via journaling, because you can ask yourself questions, i.e., how am I feeling, right? Is that how I want to be feeling? Why do I feel that way? What happened today? Or how do I feel when I wake up in the morning today? Am I a bit anxious? What's going on? And then asking yourself, well, how do I actually want to feel? And then transitioning into the feeling that you really do want to feel. And that's a really good way of just stopping, listening, asking yourself what's going on, and then making a bit of a plan to transition yourself into the energy that you want to be in. And the best thing about this is that the more you do it, the less likely that stress is going to get too much, because you get much quicker and you get a lot better at recognizing the signs, at recognizing when you need to stop, have a little listen, essentially just looking inwards and figuring out where you are at, where you're feeling, and then realizing how you can change things. And that's what happens. You get better at it as time goes on. So things like this don't creep up on you as much. So you're not going to be the person that's uber stressed all the time. And another good way to do this, like I said, this is still step 1, start and end your day with a bit of a reflection. Another good thing of mindfulness is also like meditations and breathing exercises. So that might be a really cool thing for you. You might love doing that. You might not, so that's cool. Maybe stick to the journaling or the gratitude and just figuring out how your energy is. But to reduce the stress and improve focus, meditations and breathing exercises are really, really handy as well. So that's the first thing. Number 2 is to manage your schedule. If you've been listening to this podcast for a little while, if you've been in my world for a little while, you will know that I love to schedule things. You'll know that is one of the biggest things for me, because it's actually one of the biggest stresses for me. That's why I make a big deal out of it, because I have so many hats to wear. So when am I fitting in this? When am I fitting in that? When am I seeing this person? When am I doing this meeting? When am I doing this podcast interview? When am I doing this for? It's endless. And I'm a mum of 3. So the actual biggest stresses for me have to be managed, and time is going to happen anyway. Time will just go by. There's 24 hours in a day. It's going to go by anyway. So what you have to do is you have to manage yourself effectively. Optimize your productivity, reduce the stress, alleviate that guilt. This is what happens when you schedule your time properly. So you have a designated time block for when you're doing your marketing. You have a designated time block for when you see your clients. You have non-negotiables in there, and then you have the other things that you want to slot in and fit in around your non-negotiables to hit your goals. If you're anything like me as well, you're going to colour code things so that you can look at it at a glance, see where you're spending most of your time and feel good about it. That is the whole thing. And number 3, go over your boundaries and policies in your beauty business. Okay, if you need help with going through boundaries and crafting policies in your beauty business, there is a really good training by yours truly in the Beauty Build private community on Facebook. Have a little look in the description. There'll be a link to it. Join if you're not already in there, and have a look at the trainings that are already in there for free. They are in there. They are waiting for you. So if you need it, have a little look. But you need to do this for your personal life and your business. If there is something in your personal life that is annoying you, giving you the ick, same thing. You have to whack some sort of personal boundary in place and uphold it. Okay, that's one of the biggest things that people miss, is like they say, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have this policy, or I'm going to do this thing to make me feel better, and then they don't implement anything and they don't follow through because why? It's icky, it's hard, we don't like having awkward conversations. But if that's contributing to your stress levels and making it too difficult for you to be productive, you have got to get back on track with your boundaries and policies. That is the long and short of it. You cannot be people pleasing. And number 4 is to stay focused and present in the day to day. And you do that. And my best advice to be doing that is to focus on what's in your control. You can do that by always remembering, if you need a visual in your mind, always remembering the circles, the circle of concern and the circle of influence. If you can imagine in your mind one huge big circle and then one with a smaller, one big circle with a smaller one inside it, and the big one is the circle of concern, and the one inside it, the smaller one, is the circle of influence. Now, we spend way too much of our time in the bigger circle, in the circle of concern, right? We concern ourselves with things like the weather. We concern ourselves with people getting, stuck in front of us, and then they ruin our day because they've cut in front of us and it's traffic and it's all the rest of it. We concern ourselves with things like that. We concern ourselves with how many followers people have got on Instagram, or, what somebody else is doing on Instagram. We concern ourselves with everything going on in the news and, prices of things. I mean, you can't change these things, right? So what you want to do is you want to shift your focus, get back into the smaller circle, which is the circle of influence, which is everything in your control. So it's things like your reactions, it's things like your productivity, it's things like how you're managing your stress levels, how you're prioritizing yourself, how you're prioritizing self-care, what you feel about a certain thing, how your attitude is. All of the things that you can control are in that circle of influence. So that is where you want to spend your time. Stay focused and present in the everyday, day-to-day stuff and the operations of your business by thinking about, what can I control? Is this in my control? Because a lot of the time things are peeing us off, right? And they're increasing our stress levels. And you know what? We cannot do anything about them anyway. Okay. And I tell you what, just by doing that one thing, you are going to be reducing so much of your stress levels. You really are. And then when you think about, well, actually, what could I control in this scenario? You'll surprise yourself as well, because you'll think, oh, it's not in my control. And actually it might be, right? And maybe it's that you come back to step 3 and you go, right, actually, I can control something here. I'm going to put a boundary or a policy in place in the business. And that can really help. So doing those 4 things that I've mentioned are going to help. But like I said at the beginning of this episode, I want you to think about the fact that you need a little bit of stress in your life. You need a little bit of good stress, because there are so many myths flying around, right? Let me know how you feel about this. Please reach out to me. Please take a screenshot of this episode at this point. Put it on your socials and tag me and tell me what your thoughts are on hustle culture and, the fact that we should be hustling, or maybe we shouldn't be hustling, because there's a lot of different things flying around. Or the fact that people talk about work-life balance. I talk about work-life balance, right? I talk about ease. I talk about alignment. So if you've been in my world, you probably have heard on my trainings or in my podcast that I talk about everything being in alignment to who you are, what you stand for, and what your business stands for. Now, what I don't want to happen is for anyone to get that message confused. I don't want you getting that confused with comfort and easy, and things shouldn't be difficult, okay? Because that is not the case. Yes, I don't think people should be hustling to the point that they're like giving themselves an early grave and all the rest of it. I don't think you should be pushing yourself and burning yourself into the ground. I really don't. And in this day and age where people are like mothers and we are really burning the candle at both ends anyway, we have to be careful. So I don't think that this hustle thing is great. I think there has to be some sort of middle thing. There needs to be an optimal level of stress, should we call it, okay? Because let's be honest, when you're at optimal stress, okay, so it's not too low where you're feeling lazy, and it's not too high where you're feeling overwhelmed. But when it's optimal, when you're feeling like, well, you've got a deadline or you've got something you want to work towards, you're engaged, you're focused, you're motivated, you're a bit more confident, you are productive, you start putting yourself out there a bit more, you start, stop getting that imposter syndrome, or you do get a little bit of it, but you overcome it and that feels really good and you start being really proud of yourself. These kind of things are really, really positive things. healthy pressure versus overwhelming pressure. We want healthy pressure. That is what we want. So you need to still be setting those goals. You need to still be thinking to yourself, what do I enjoy? What lights me up? What gets me going? What makes me want to be engaged? What makes me want to be focused? What makes me want to get out of bed in the morning? What pushes me forward? And this is where it comes in hand with things like your why. Why is it that you run a beauty business? Why is it that you do what you do? What is it that you want it to provide you in the future? Who does that affect? And why does that affect them? And then why? And keep asking yourself why you do what you do until you get to a really seriously crystal clear vision and why in your head that you can envisage and you can make tangible to yourself, so that you could literally think about it and then think about reaching out and touching it and thinking, this is it. Because those are the kind of things that are going to give you that level of healthy pressure, that optimal level of stress where you're like, right, I'm engaged. This gets me going. It wakes me up. It creates a fire in my belly. You need some of it. Your dreams do need to push you. They do need to scare you a little bit. So we can stop the crazy hustle culture, but we don't need to just chill and think that things should come easy. They're not going to come easy. There aren't any quick fixes. That you can't grow a beauty business overnight. Right? And a good beauty business should come to somebody who's put the effort in, right? It should come to those who take the time and the effort to learn and grow as a person. You know, your business is only going to grow as much as you do as a person. You're supposed to get out of your comfort zone. You're supposed to keep growing. If things were really easy and simple and didn't take a lot of effort or a little bit of stress, everyone would be where you want to be. Everyone would be doing it. Everyone would be super successful. We'd all be rich, right? But we're not. And that's because we need this level of putting the effort in to give us the reward that we deserve. Okay, so I want you to trust the process. I want you to do those steps I talked about to manage your stress, of course, but trust yourself, trust the process, and use the stress in your life to your advantage. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I will see you all on the next one.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained valuable insights that will help you in your beauty business and life. If you did, please take a screenshot and tag me in your stories. If you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me on any of my socials. The links are always in the descriptions. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us improve and bring you more and more great content. Until next time, keep building that business.